What do you think is the hardest language to learn for English speakers? Hungarian, Arabic, Cantonese? Yeah, I don't think so. Let me tell you why. In this week's video, we're going to discuss a popular subject on the internet regarding the most difficult language to learn for native English speakers. But, as usual, I'm going to take it in a somewhat different direction than most. So, according to the American Foreign Service Institute, which teaches languages to government employees, the Category 5 2,200-hour languages that are, quote, exceptionally difficult for native English speakers, end quote, include, yes, Arabic and Cantonese, but also Mandarin, Korean, and supposedly the hardest of them all, the language isolate of Japanese. Now, while there's a lot of truth to that ranking, all those languages do have significantly different orthographies from English, among other challenges, but it's still a generalization. After all, each language learner is unique with his or her own strengths and weaknesses. Some people are just better at learning pronunciation, while others excel at grammar. But for Category 5, what it really comes down to is simply motivation and discipline, the willingness to study for at least a little bit each day. Because these languages, Arabic, Mandarin, Cantonese, Japanese, each have massive speech communities, and you can find a plethora of resources available just online and for free for studying them, far more so than for many easier languages. And that's really where I take the most issue with this list. You see, while it's plenty fun to consider which of the world's languages are the most typologically distinct from English and therefore the most difficult, that doesn't at all take into consideration another key factor: accessibility. For instance, the Frisian languages spoken by about 500,000 people in the Netherlands and Germany are considered by many to be the closest living relative of English. And yet, if you were to try to learn West Frisian without actually living in these pockets along the North Sea, I suspect you'd have a fairly challenging time. Of course, that's not because Frisian itself is so linguistically onerous, but because the resources, especially online, are so limited. The supply is small and so is the demand. Now compare that with Mandarin Chinese, for which there are 2,600 times more native speakers. On Italki, you can find over 800 Chinese tutors, whereas for Frisian, there are exactly 0. Thus, while Chinese and all its tones may be listed at the highest level of difficulty and Frisian considered a sister language of English, this doesn't at all take into account the wild disparity in textbooks, websites, tutors, classes, language partners, etc. available for studying them. And with that in mind, we can get much harder. In my view, the most difficult non-constructed living language for English speakers is found at the intersection of the most typologically distinct and the most obscure, a language you could not possibly acquire without living and interacting in a tiny speech community for an extended period of time, if they even let you. The only problem, however, which I know will be so unsatisfying, is that I can't possibly know what that is. There are about 7,000 languages out there, many of which are critically endangered, spoken by a vanishingly thin number of people in very isolated areas around the world, and as such they have barely been catalogued by Ethnologue, let alone studied. If I were forced to put a name down, I would suggest some extremely rare languages of East Asia, where the most difficult languages for English speakers seem to thrive. Languages like the Austronesian Inagta Partido language, spoken by about 5 people at most among a semi-nomadic hunter-gatherer indigenous group in the Philippines. Good luck learning even how to say hello. Alternatively, you could try the Sino-Tibetan language of Sema-Tu from Yunnan, China, not to be confused with Samator, of course. There may be 100 times more speakers than for Inagta Partido, but the Wikipedia entry is just 18 words long. But regardless, in my opinion, it's these tragically moribund, ultra-obscure languages from the other side of the globe that are truly the hardest to learn. Not Mandarin. My own high school taught that. Come on. Alright, that's all for today. Please give this video a like if you learned something or just thought about something differently. And let me know in the comment section what you think is the most difficult mainstream language for English speakers. Does the Foreign Service Institute get it right? Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on the next video, and as always, thank you so much for watching.